It's always weird not to start the show with a singing. To me, it is. It's always weird.
Do you want to sing?
No, I don't want to. Everyone's always asking when they return, they have to sing. No, guys, welcome back. It's always good to have you guys back in the studio, and we've got a friend, someone that's traveled across the country to come here, which is great. Thank you so much.
I am happy to be here.
It's good to finally meet you in person.
Yeah.
So we're so glad that you're going to be part of this conversation, which I think is an important one. And I think that who did you reach out to first? When
Angelo and I connected first, and then we had a conversation about it and met on Zoom, and just kind of went from there.
Are all you guys spending more time on LinkedIn these days as a social platform, primarily?
I am.
Okay, I'm just gauging it.
So
yeah. Coralee, same thing.
Mine's mostly Instagram right now, and figuring out LinkedIn. It's a different.
It depends on your target market.
You feed it. That's all it
is.
You just feed it.
Yeah.
I think
and you see who comes. I think that's what. And then you figure out where to spend your resources. Like depending on your business, right? Like Instagram, a lot of my followers are tradespeople, so that's the kind of content they like. And that's kind of what you feed them. If you're doing more professional stuff, I find LinkedIn's the way to go. But there's pros and cons to each. Like LinkedIn is great, but I feel like everybody just always agrees because your name's there, your company's there, and you bring up an issue. It's like, yes, we have to fix this. But on Instagram, people hide behind a picture of Donald Trump and a fake handle like Thundercock69, who was one guy who was actually trolling me. Best username I've ever heard. But you get the real goods,
what is
man.
he, Thor's brother?
Possibly.
But I find LinkedIn is more stimulating conversation or stimulating comments. I think they're justified. Unless you guys can... No? You get some haters out there?
No, not haters. I just Captain Obvious.
I don't...
it's an echo chamber.
I don't engage.
Yeah, it is an echo.
It's an echo chamber.
That's the perfect definition of it.
Okay.
So just a lot, I refer to it as Captain Obvious. They just say or post things that are just so fucking obvious. Like, dig a little bit deeper, Show me some authentic stuff.
I want to bring it up because the thing is we're trying to figure out how people talk about what we're about to talk about and what we've spoken on other previous TNT shows and even on this show in general. But who else is doing things? Like everyone's just a spectator, like you were just saying off mic, right? Whereas like the most of the people are just being spectators about it, and it's almost like that idea of like you see a post, it's a very sad post or something dramatic is happening in the world, and you like it, and that's the extent of your contribution. Where I think we want, as part of this show, to have more engagement. We want people to actually speak up and take the chance of speaking out.
And I think what's showing up, whether you're on LinkedIn or on Instagram, is like the polar existence of exactly, singing to the choir type of thing on LinkedIn, and then the opposite coming out on Instagram. Like, where's the middle ground where, where the solutions exist? That's I think where we need to get to.
And I mean, I'll be honest, we're having a difficult time finding solutions. Because I don't think we have all the solutions, but at least we're discussing it, and I think solutions will come from it, whether it takes a month or two or even a year, they will eventually come. But I think we're starting the dialogue, and that's why I think it's important to continue these particular shows. That's
where it starts with, and we talked about it last time too, but I think the whole world in general, and construction might be a little bit behind, but we're in an awareness phase, especially with this mental health stuff. Yeah. And we're acknowledging now that there are issues. We went over the stats in the last show, and it's staggering the amount of people struggling with this stuff. But I don't think a lot of people know what to do with those situations and that information. And we can talk about it later too, but there was a study I came across out of the States, and it basically, they've spent a year or two doing research on root causes, like you mentioned, like what are causing these issues in construction. And even after that period of time, they say it's very difficult to define what the issue is. So how do you solve a problem exists, but you don't know what the cause is right now? So it's sorry, just to finish off that point, if I keep rambling, it's important to have the conversations because you have to shed enough light on it to keep the attention on it, to dig down and have those difficult conversations, get uncomfortable, and we got to figure it out.
So sorry, Gianluca. Let's pump the brakes a little bit. Let's introduce everybody.
Oh, sorry.
Jonathan Sinelli, happy to be back. You can follow me. www.jonathansinelli.com. Telephone number 416-717-4139. That is tremendously important for me to share. That's me holistically saying, I'm here, I'm available. So thanks for having me back.
Welcome.
Angelo Santries, Human-Sided Construction, just a dude trying to improve the construction industry. Follow me on Instagram at Human Side of Construction and on LinkedIn.
Not going in order.
Ladies first.
Oh, no, come on now. No, I appreciate that. Coralee Beatty, Thrive HQ. I do training, coaching, consulting for the construction industry. You can reach me, Coralee Beatty, on all platforms. I'm one of one. I'm easy to find.
I love that. My name is Gianluca Coralee. I'm the head curator of the Constructors Guild. Pleasure to be here once again this afternoon to share insight, knowledge, and wisdom. And you can find me on LinkedIn at Gianluca Coralee or constructorsguild.com. Thank you, Manny.
Good, thanks. So now everybody knows everybody. We're all good. We're all going to have fun and we're going to talk. So where do you want to begin? Like, where do we want to start?
Oh, no, we were kind of chatting before, like last time we went over the numbers and we kind of presented the case and how, and generating some awareness into how big the problem is. So now that we know a problem exists, maybe we can dive into some details, and I'll pose a question to the group. Knowing that people are struggling, a lot of people are struggling, what would be barriers from them reaching out to get help, specifically in the construction industry?
Stigmas.
Fear. The first thing that shows up for me is the stigma, the fear of I'm not reaching out. Not me.
Fear of what?
Oh, fear.
Judgment.
Yeah, judgment or
others.
Okay, so I mean, let's
even fear of retribution.
Listen, but look at the construction industry traditionally, right? Suck it up, buttercup. You gotta be tough. You gotta be a man, right? Mm-hmm. Now we've made inroads as far as diversity on site. Yes, but the question becomes how many inroads have we actually made from a mental, emotional standpoint? Mm-hmm. And does that stigmatism still exist? We're here because we know the answer, right?
What about you guys? What's the first thing that pops in your head?
It's the masculine environment that I think stops people from... They think that if they reach out, it's a sign of weakness. And the construction industry is not a place for weakness.
How do we balance that reaching out and still keeping our masculinity?
From my perspective, it's a leadership thing where you need to be able to create an environment where people feel safe to speak out, to have the conversations openly and not pinpointing people, say, how are things going with you necessarily, but just as an environment where we talk about these things. So, in your morning huddles, it's just a touch point.
Yeah.
I think it's something that needs to be presented often and always, and just so people start to understand that maybe this is a safe place. Maybe I can. Because I think it takes a lot of repetition and a lot of observing to really feel as though that environment is one that you feel safe to speak about it. And then you kind of maybe talk to a colleague that you feel comfortable with. It's a long path to comfort, for sure.
Am I fair to say, we recently had BCCSA on the show, right? Safety out of British Columbia there. And I got the sense that you guys are probably doing a little bit better than us here in Ontario. But I don't know if that's a fair assessment because of the population numbers, right? Obviously, we have more people in construction here than versus you guys there. So I get the sense that you're doing better on that communication side of things. We
have some great programs. There's one that's called More Than a Bystander. That is it's a program that is delivered to typically men, leaders in the industry, to help them understand. And it's actually, I think it was originally developed by or through the BC Lions.
Okay.
And in conjunction with BC CWIT, which is the BC Centre for Women in Trades. And they provide this training to help people understand the experience of women or we'll say underrepresented individuals within the industry. And it's education. And people come out of that having no idea, they had no idea that this is what the condition was of our experience. So it's a starting point for sure.
Are women having the same problems that men are having, trying to communicate and open this up and having this conversation?
Yes, same but different. Okay. Absolutely.
So do you think? Sorry to interrupt.
No, go ahead.
And thanks for sharing all that. Do you think it's because they're trying to fit into the norm of the construction site? You know what I mean? Or is it that men and women are equally affected by the barriers to seeking help? I would guess it's the former, being that they're trying to fit into the macho,
I think that's
tough world of construction.
I think that's the starting point. right from the beginning of us coming into the industry, it's, you know, we feel as though we need to have this guard up and we need to be strong, we need to be masculine, we need to fit in with what's around us.
Yeah.
But I think that expectation is put on ourselves. Like, it's like we feel as though we need to do this.
Who's taught them that, though? Why do we feel we need to do that? I've never, any day of construction that I've ever had, I've never thought to Popeye pump my fist mentality. Not once. I never had to do that. I never rolled down the job site that way. But I'm coming from a different world that you guys are in, right? Where you guys are more high-rise commercial, big companies, things like that. I'm on a custom, small crew, 20 people at the max, not always at the same time. But I never had to be like big man on hill mentality. I never had to do that. So I don't know who's teaching the people that this is how you should be.
Yeah.
What is that? Is that just like the stereotype? They're watching a cartoon and they see that that's what they're representing. When we see a bulldog and a Looney Tunes, it's a huge chest and tiny legs. You know what I mean? Like, is that, it's just society's taught us that that's how we should be on site? Really?
Well, listen, it's one, there's a conversation that happens and then there's a door that closes and then it's like, you got to be harder on that person. You got to be a jerk. You got to show up. And that, think of we live in a tiered society, right? So top-down mentality. Developer is saying, you got to be a hard ass on this guy because you're going to screw you. It's that who's going to get screwed first mentality. So that's where that comes from, right?
From what I've seen and like feedback I've gotten, it's interesting with social media, right? Like when I started posting, it was just whatever came to mind. I was having fun. But now I like to throw things out as little experiments.
Sure. And
you see what people comment. You see what people like. A lot of comments I get are with respect to like the site supervision level. So I don't think it's like straight across the board, like all the worker bees have this mentality. Definitely foreman, foreperson, whatever you want to call them, maybe site supers, definitely are that atypical alpha male, yell, scream, get stuff done. Because I think that has been historically what's worked and what's driven the industry, driving productivity through like physical stuff. And hopefully the industry, I think it's changing a little bit more towards like, you know, the company you mentioned before and everything. So I wouldn't say everybody's expected to be up to that standard, but definitely supervision. I think there's a bit of an expectation that's being perpetuated from my.
Well, it's a leadership style. That it's a very authoritarian, fear-based leadership, and the people that are coming into our industry do not respond well to that form of leadership.
No,
and I think that that's where the disconnect is, especially now, and why we're not getting more people in. Is just that still exists. The leaders are still yelling to get there. I mean, my son, who's just turned 18, is on big commercial site. He's a HVAC tech, and he comes home every day. And I just talked to him like, so what happened today? And it is the same thing. And his foreperson is not old. He's not a 45 or 50-year-old guy. He's like in his late 20s. So this is not something that is growing out of the industry. This is something that's still continuing to come into the industry, and where we hope that, you know, the old generation is moving out and the new generation will be, you know, enlightened and bring something new and fresh. I don't think that that's where we're headed right now.
Well, it's being squashed, like, unfortunately. And like what, and the first thing that came to mind as you were saying that is you'd have, and we're getting into a bit of a different conversation around a generational divide now, but maybe it's part and parcel of the same thing. But a lot of what you get from the older, more experienced people is all these young kids, they're so entitled and they're entitled pricks and they just want to be on their phone. It's like, don't confuse entitlement with not putting up with bullshit anymore.
Yes.
Like, fine, this generation, younger generations might have it easier with access to information, instant gratification, all that stuff. But you can't be a dick to people anymore because they're not going to put up with it. Well, they're going to come. They might come. Same with women, too. If you don't have the system for people to come in and thrive, different types of people, diverse and inclusion, all that stuff, if you don't set up the system to adopt them, they're going to come because, oh, yeah, you go into construction, you can make good money. But they're going to get there and realize, like, what the fuck is this? This isn't what they told me about. And they're going to leave.
But are you a bad person or a good person the way we grew up? Like,
what?
Fall off the bike, scrape your knee, you survived. I don't need to bubble wrap the bike.
Maybe it's not a right or wrong. Maybe it's an and conversation.
I'm wondering if it's a fear of like the management worried if we coddle, production won't move forward. But then the younger generation doesn't want to be yelled at. Otherwise, production won't move forward.
I don't think anybody wants to be yelled at.
Nobody wants to be yelled at.
You know, some of what's happening right now.
Yelled at and razzing are two different things.
Listen, A bit of razzing never killed anybody.
That's
so
what
let's just set
that's
that
what I'm
one
trying to
aside.
get at. We all been razzed.
But as it relates to how the construction industry is where it is today, it's multifaceted. And another one that feeds it is how the clients, our clients to the industry, treat us in return. You know, and that shit flows downhill, right?
Yeah.
Of course it does.
So their unrealistic demands and expectations turns into aggravation, turns into stress. And what do people do when their back is up against the wall? Some of them squawk, you know, and mind you, they don't have a filter by then because they've got so much pressure, and they unload onto whoever's in front of them. I'm not saying that I'm excusing it. It's just it needs to be understood.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying that anybody. Here's another thing: is that we mentioned, and I can't even paraphrase earlier when we first started that. There's a feeling that the industry has a level of masculinity that prevents people from embracing mental health or mental illness. There may be, I'm not saying there isn't, but how can we explain women having trouble with the same thing and attempting suicide 4 times more? And I don't want to get to the stats, but it's just to prove my point. They attempt suicide 4 times more.
Do women do?
Yeah, 4 times more than men. So it points to the fact that they too suffer from the ability to openly come out and say, I have a problem. I'm dealing with a lot right now and I need help. I think that is universal. To pinpoint it on one side or the other is unfair.
Everybody struggles. It doesn't discriminate. Rich, poor, black, white, man, woman. Like everybody experiences the same issues. But it's the overall stigma against mental health. Because I know growing up, like now there's a lot more conversations on the topic. But growing up when I was a kid, and you use the word crazy. Oh, you're crazy. That's a crazy person. So there was like, quote unquote, normal. Then there was a person in a straitjacket in a hospital being medicated. And there was nothing in between. You were either crazy or not. And you didn't want to be associated with that person. So you hid it and you built up these barriers and these walls and felt safe hiding all your shit. And quote unquote normal. There's no fucking normal, guys. That's the thing we all have to appreciate and realize is everybody's got a different experience. Everybody brings their own baggage, whether it's to site or home to the bar. And it's finding a way to work with that. Now, you can't treat everybody as a snowflake and bubble wrap everything and spend your day being like, Jonathan, how are you? Are you okay? Well, Gianluca, how about you, buddy? Are you doing okay?
Not bad.
Okay, good. Coralee, you know what I mean? But there's somewhere in between where we just got to be, and I think it comes down to empathy and compassion.
But is management noticing that people are suppressing all this stuff?
Well, I think there's a disconnect between site and the office. And it needs to be established at a level where the people on site understand that it's a priority. But what they understand as a priority is production, getting things done. And, you know, that's when the hammer comes down because they feel the pressure to get things done. It does the mental health on the site where you're going to see it is not a priority. So even if at the office they're like, oh, we really care about this, that's not what's being transferred. That's not what's being understood when they're on site. It's no, we need to get the project done.
No, if this person didn't show up for the day because they took a mental health day.
Yeah. One out of 100 people.
Yeah, that shows very different.
But are businesses quantifying these losses? Because if they're just about the focus of the profit and moving forward and getting the project completed, and you've got tradespeople that have mental health issues and there's things going on in their lives that are affecting their productivity, why aren't they quantifying those losses? Because those are losses. If someone goes down, material goes down, material's defaulted or not delivered, or that's all quantified on a job site. Why aren't they factoring in
or
the
if there's a physical injury, that's documented. You know what I mean? Lost
but
time.
the mental's never.
No.
But it actually grows and grows and grows, and most people suppress. Based on what we know, they suppress, and then they don't talk to anybody because of the fears that we just opened the show with.
And it impacts other people, too. So I would argue that a mental illness has a bigger impact on a job site than a physical illness or ailment.
I'd say, yeah, for sure.
Because if you get hurt, you get sent home. If you cut your finger, you need first aid.
Everybody wishes they break instead of sprain.
But with mental health, you could be a huge asshole to everybody, and it's because you're not coping with what's going on in your life. You got problems with your wife. You got financial issues. So you come to work and you yell at people, and you slow them down, and you bog them down, and you complain. And I bet you, if you did the data, it would have a bigger impact.
I was just going to say, wasn't that part of the stats that you shared last time? Was when you were talking about the billions
KMH.
of dollars?
Yeah. So I think that was the cost for the healthcare system.
to the healthcare.
Right now.
Yeah, it's like billions, like 51 billion to support people with mental illness across the board in Canada. But I don't know if there's any data specific to mental illness in construction impacting job sites.
Well, because it flows together, right? Because the mental disconnect, the mental illness flows into a distraction, which causes a physical site injury, and then that's quantifiable. Oh,
right.
That person got hurt because they,
But it'll never be associated.
But it never goes back. But the reality is,
they
would have never got hurt if they weren't distracted because they weren't suffering here.
They can't do it because they don't want that number.
Right.
Yeah.
They don't want to know that number.
One thing I wanted to, I quickly just rewind quickly and piggyback on something that Coralee shared earlier. There is, without a doubt, and I'd love to see hear what everybody else has to say about this, a disconnect between what happens on site and what happens in the office. It has been my experience, be it firsthand or by stories, that the people in the office don't really understand or know exactly what's going on site. It's just a matter of information flow. It's one-sided. Very little
Is it
ever
just
comes
blinders?
back up.
It's just office blinders.
Blinders is definitely one of them.
So they come in. This is my duty. This is my scope. This is what I'm going to get done, paper-wise. I don't need to know what's happening.
I don't think it's blinders in the sense that they're a bad person, but I want to tie.
But
I want to tie two things that you guys said together, because you touched on the fact that owners, and I'm not picking on owners, but it starts there, right? The project, the conception. They come up with the budget. They come up with the schedule. And then they put these unrealistic schedules and budgets on the backs of contractors, GCs, if you want to call them that. And then the GC, and everybody just keeps pushing the risk down. Yep. Well, guess who can't push the risk down anymore? The site team.
The workforce.
So the guys in the office, the guys and gals in the office making a decision, oh, we're slow, we got to take this job at a loss. Okay, Mr. Project Manager, here you go. See you later. There's a disconnect. How many electricians you need? 30? How many plumbers you need? 40? And it's resources to get a job done. It's not individuals doing the work at that point. Am I talking crazy talk?
No.
This is real. I mean, listen, part of the work that I do is performance coaching as well, and I was literally just working with an individual in his mid-30s, working for a developer in a very prominent position, right? And his messaging was, you got to be harder on these guys. You got to show up as a dick, right? You got to play them.
That was his solution?
This was, from his boss, who was 10 years older than him, right?
Who was probably a huge dick.
Yeah, he's like, you have to play the mind games. You know, the whole objective is give a little bit of information, but not all the information. And so him and I are working together in a coaching relationship, and he's struggling with this, right? Because he's going like, what the fuck? This is not who I am, right?
Oh, it creates a conflict.
And so this is one individual. This is not unique to him.
But is it because of a one-way street mentality? Like, I keep thinking about the upper management. Like, how much do I dive into this person's life? And they're not going to dive into my life. What's going on in my life? What's going on with my wife, my kids?
Maybe that they have that. There's definitely a possibility that that's happening, but maybe that they have that thought process or mindset because nobody's asking them about them.
Right.
What are you struggling with?
But they
may
being
be
asked
struggling
to
more
address
than the
these
individual.
other people about their issues.
But what I'm saying is that if let's pretend I'm this middle management. And I'm charged with or asked to look into or maybe come across that there's one or more people that work for me that directly report to me that is having a problem, and somehow my management is asking me to look into it. Maybe I'm putting up a fuss because nobody's asking me what I'm struggling with. Maybe I'm handling more.
I think it could be.
Right? It's multifaceted. Like, you can dissect this until the cows come home.
It's so complicated. That's the problem. Sorry.
I was just going to share my experience with me learning as an employer what it was like, because I'm from the generation where you are happy to have a job, you are grateful for having a job, and you go to work and you get paid, and that's what you do. Why do I have to coddle you and appreciate you? And that's where I came from when I started my business in the early 2000s. And then I realized when I got over myself and what I thought they should need, and actually started giving them what they needed. In other words, they just needed a, hey, how are you doing? And the reason I say this is because this is the construction industry. This is the mentality of the construction industry forever. And we're always slow to pick up change. We're always slow to do things differently. So I think it is the industry on a whole that we have that mentality that is, our people are here to do the work. Why should I ask them how their weekend was or how their wife was or how their kids are? You know, that's not what the construction industry is. It is. Like, those are the people. Those are the people that are coming in. Yeah. They need those conversations, whether we like it or not. And when I say we, I mean, I used to be like that. I changed. And when I realized that to give them what they need, all of a sudden the relationship with my people completely changed. And it was me being able to connect with them because I took down my own barrier. And I think that is an awareness that we need to share with leaders to say, it is starting with you. You are the one that's responsible to have the conversations, to start the conversations. Say that to, leader, to whoever is your direct report, and then just model that all the way down.
Yeah.
So if we take that and take it a step prior, is to teach them, tell me if I'm hitting the mark, to teach them that they are their best and most valuable investment. They themselves.
So
because the person, whoever, whether it's management, whether it's a site super, if the individual takes care of themselves first, evidently you're going to be able to take care of everybody else, right?
But we're being told that they don't want to do that. They want
So
to.
because
There's the outpour of I need help, so I need to.
That whole thing that when you fill somebody else's bucket, your own bucket gets filled, but when your bucket is empty, you don't have anything to give to other people, and you're always concerned about number one.
Take care of the passengers beside you on the plane first.
Yeah.
Instead of, right? But you're supposed to take care of yourself first and then the passenger, right?
Yeah.
I guess and I agree with you, Coralee, where it's like, construction is like a turtle, 200-year-old turtle. It moves so. But at some point in this industry, you're going to wipe clean everybody that's causing all the problems that are today. The question is, are they going to be replaced by younger people and become them?
Well,
They
At this
are.
point,
I think
yes.
that's what we're
Because I
seeing.
think of the razzing, I think of the negativity that's being poured on them, that they're just inevitably going to become that
It's
person.
being perpetuated for sure.
Yes.
And that's the feedback I've gotten from a lot of people is that this is how it was for me, so this is how it's
But
going to
is
be
it
for
a
you.
good thing to wipe
mentality.
it all clean and start fresh?
I don't think you can throw the baby out with the bathwater, man. There's
No.
a lot of good things about construction. Inherently, it's tough. It's stressful. You need a certain level of toughness, mental and even physical too, for certain aspects.
It's a demanding
It's not for the
industry.
faint-hearted. Yes, for sure.
So which leads me to a question. If we wipe out the industry, just on what Maddie was sharing with us, if we wipe out the industry, we're not wiping out or teaching or resetting the people that require our services. So there's problems that come from that side. We covered it earlier, the demands and expectations of our clients that are dumped upon us. If we just reset the industry, but we don't reset the sources
Well, no, that's not the solution. I think that's going to make things worse.
of what?
The industry in general. If you wipe out everything that you think is a negative and not contributing to the industry, I think you're going to get an industry force that's going to be worse than what's.
I don't think
currently
anything
right
is going to get done.
No, I think you need it.
now. That's where I'm going. at.
You need the negative. The negative
That's
is
what
a
I
driving
mean.
force.
How do you build yourself? How do we get stronger? You get stronger by faults, by failures, by
Yeah.
problems and solving.
Continuous
people standing
improvement.
up.
Well, Lord knows
It's-
we know how to make a lot of mistakes in the construction industry, but
Yes.
are we learning from them?
But it's the
That's
self-awareness.
the
Coralee
good.
was
That's a
talking
good point. It's like the majority of the industry isn't learning from them.
There's so much juice flowing right now. I can't contain my excitement. There's so much shit going through my
Share,
mind.
then just jump in
Okay,
and
well, I'm
share.
going to
There's
forget.
no
I already
time limit.
forgot
We're just
half
gonna
the stuff
share.
here, Manny. I want to go back to what you were saying because
put
it
fire in
ties.
the center
It
and
ties
some
in.
marshmallows.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, get comfortable. Bring a blanket. It comes back to what you were saying, and it ties into the whole human side of construction thing. Because the way the industry operates now, it's transactional. I did not, and I'm sure everybody here can agree, I did not get into the industry to fulfill the minimum obligations of a contract.
No.
But that's what it's come to.
Yeah.
It's not about the building anymore. It's about the documentation, the piece of paper, and cover your ass and change order this and this and that. And it's overwhelming. I feel like we've gotten away from a little bit, maybe the old school of like handshake, let's figure it out. Yep, this isn't in my contract, but that's not in your contract. Let's put our heads together, solve a problem, instead of butting heads and letting the lawyers collect all the money. And if you look at like basic psychology, I don't know all the details, but Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? The basic, food, shelter, things to survive.
Safety.
The next level, social inclusion. Where's that in construction? It's very isolating.
If anything,
And
it's
We're
being
stuck at
loaded.
the
you
bottom.
don't have that human connection.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times guys are treated like animals on site with not even clean washrooms or hot
But we've
water to
said
wash
that. They're
their hands.
numbers, and they're
Yeah.
replaced the next day if they get injured.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Sorry. I lost my train of thought there. But I just wanted to touch on that.
self-awareness.
That's
I
it.
love what you were doing. It's the self-awareness. It starts with you as a human being, the self-awareness, right? And that's what's missing, because there's this thing in construction, and it's like when I make it to the top, I made it. Now I can tell you what to do. But I flip the script and say, look at the elite athletes of the world. They don't make it to the top and then quit. They dig in harder. They get the right people around them.
There's a lot of selfishness in that world, right? There's a lot. I think there's more selfishness in anybody that succeeds than there is not. You know what I mean? There's only, you hear far and few superstars, athletes, people that are giving back to where they came from.
No, but they have the self-awareness to continue to get better, right?
For themselves.
I think the ego.
Oh. Yes, that's what I mean. Is that, and now let's talk about building wise. Once you become a CEO or a big dog in the industry and you've built so many structures, I think the majority of the industry keeps on having that huge ego and growing instead of giving back to the industry. Otherwise, we would see more CEOs going to the boots on the ground going, you know what, you guys are hugely valuable. We care about you guys.
Well,
you
that's a really good point. It goes
to
what you were saying too, and I think it comes down to greed, right? Like why are
There's money to be made.
people accepting these unrealistic schedules and contracts and stuff and taking jobs at under cost or whatever?
Yes, that's what I was going to.
Greed, power, money.
Yeah.
That's it. And it's our own fault because that's what we've riddled ourselves to. We've been conditioned to compete at the cost of opportunity, project, and wealth.
And our people, because our people suffer at the end. Like
that's it.
You know what I mean?
Those are our two wins: is projects and money.
Yeah.
And if done properly, you get to keep some of that money. But nevertheless, everything else that is required in order to achieve those successes all depends on the people. But we're not taking care of the people. So there's the biggest drop that we have.
Yeah.
Why can't we do this? There was John, a former MOL inspector, was on the show recently, and he talked about out in BC, I think it was, you guys have this, we don't have it across the country, where if there's a situation, something happens and there's a lawsuit and the builder is at fault, they could either take this huge financial hit and years, possibly whatever the situation is, or contribute back to the society, to the industry. So like instead of being fined 250 grand, you're going to get fined 25 grand, but you have to allocate 100 hours of community service or educating the industry to be better.
Powerful.
Why can't we do that? So any builders that are building these structures and they're making all this money, dollar for dollar, goes back into mental health.
You know,
I know it's a crazy thing. It'll never happen.
Here's a crazy statement. I'm willing to say that given the opportunity to bring these good people that I know our industry has plenty of, some all the way from BC, right? And you bring all of these people into a room, I'm willing to say this following crazy statement, that a lot of these answers that we're looking for reside in the people that work in our industry, that make up our industry. But somehow, it's not about geography, but somehow, even if we were all in the same place, we seem to be in separate corners. We lack the ability of flocking together and being powerful together. Keyword here is together. So with that, collaboration is something that doesn't exist in our industry. For an industry that should be synonymous with collaboration, it's the farthest thing from it.
Coralee is on a mission to help make construction the industry of first choice rather than the industry of last resort. After 25 years in the industry and successfully selling her trades business, Coralee is now a business consultant, speaker, and a trainer in construction. She shares her knowledge, experience, and expertise with women in trades and construction to build their business for greater profitability, flexibility, and freedom. Coralee also offers fractional COO services, helping construction companies from the inside. Using the concepts from her book, Hiring Secrets for Trades and Construction, Coralee helps construction companies strengthen their leadership and build a company culture to reduce turnover and where people are loyal, engaged, and contribute to a growing bottom line. You can find Coralee at thrivehq.ca and also on IG under Coralee Beatty.
Can
Talking about like overthrowing a government or something? Trying to rally the troops.
Let's wait till the end of this podcast and I'll let go.
What were you going to say?
I was just going to say, as the woman in the room, I'm going to be so bold as to say it's because as the woman in the conversation, I'll be so bold as to say I think it is the fact that we have too many men leading our industry because they are run by ego and they don't excel in areas of connection and communication and empathy and compassion. Those are the things that we need. And we just don't have. We have some enlightened men. Some are here in this room. And that's not the representation out in the field.
Are they not allowing the women to get to those positions on purpose?
That's a whole other conversation.
It's a boys' club. I'm sorry.
I'll say it.
Yes. I go back to the turtle.
No,
I would say yes. I think they're not allowing the women to get into those positions.
I've heard from women in the industry, not a lot, but some commenting saying, I feel like I'm doing what I'm doing because I'm a woman at this project manager level or like a manager of a department level. not actually having the authority and the power that person would have, but just so that company can say they had a woman in management, say, or we have 10 women, and we have 2 black people, and we have an Asian person.
I'd rather see the work that's been completed as a result of
100%.
this workforce
100%.
from the top down,
Yeah.
instead of seeing the fact that there's X amount of women or X amount of minorities or whatever it is.
Yeah.
I'd love to just put a plug in real quick to all the women listening to this podcast. If you would kindly chime in and let us know, share some stories. If you're so, it's not about being bold, but if you're so open on sharing some stories as to what you are either currently going through or gone through, it's important for everyone to learn from these experiences. So if you're so kind to be able to share with us, I'm sure we'd all appreciate it.
Of course.
After we sold our business 6 years ago, I started on this path of just kind of digging into the industry and getting, understanding women and how they were experiencing, because it'd been like probably close to 20 years since I'd been on site, and I just wanted to see, where things were at. And there was 4 things that came up that were the reasons why women were either considering leaving the industry or not liking it or have left the industry. And that is, the first one is family obligations. Second one, and that goes for men and women. You can have single dads, single. Yeah. So it's not necessarily just a female challenge there. Second thing is these toxic environments. Yes, that goes, I think, for men and women as well, just different experiences. The other 2, though, one was not given the opportunities. So they would be like, at a certain level, and their male counterparts would be given the opportunity to say, try new things and grow their experience and grow their skill set, while the women, it's just like, no, you can, continue to sweep or continue to do the canning or continue to do that one skill that you've proven that you're good at.
Mm-hmm. The photo ops.
Yeah. Yes. Mm-hmm. Until the point that women feel as though they need to prove that they can do something, where men just need to show up and show the potential.
Or a light bulb just went off too. I think. Sorry, did I cut you off?
And then the 4th thing quickly.
I'm on fire today, guys.
And then the final thing was the lack of advancement, the lack of opportunity for advancement. They're always overlooked for advancement.
Right.
So those 2 last ones kind of come into this conversation.
Real quick, sorry,
I'm going to forget.
I actually
write it down.
Drop it.
No, go ahead.
Yeah. I misunderstood the third one and it being lack of opportunities, but you finished with the same.
The third one is advancement is being overlooked. So in other words, you're not given the opportunity to promote.
I guess
the third one is more of you're not given the opportunity to expand your skill set until you prove yourself.
I think also the upper management, the big boys, are letting them grow career-wise to a certain point. And just to make it look like we're doing well and we're contributing.
Checking the box, yeah.
But we're never going to let you into the top tier. That's the unfortunate part.
So here, the second point I want to touch on, and touches on that too, but I think this came up when we talked before, but Andrea Jansen, I think she's in Colorado now, but she's got a company, Ambition Theory, and they do specific training for women in construction, leadership training. And they did a study. It was like hundreds of people she surveyed, I think it was a couple years ago now. And she came up with this idea of the double bind, where 48% of women, it was some high number, are told that they need to be more authoritative at work. But the same percentage of women are told that they're too bossy. So you're facing this kind of dilemma where it's like, you got to be more authoritative. You got to be a bitter dick. You got to be hard on people. Oh, but you're a woman, you come across a little bit bossy. You might be a little bitchy. I don't know. Like, I don't know. Is that bullshit?
Coming from the same source?
Yeah.
It's kind of bullshit.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, you can't say both things.
I'm not doing any justice. Sorry, Andrea, if you're listening. But anyway, that's just.
But you can't approach it that way. It doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. Because then what's that woman thinking? Like, okay, well, do I be more authoritative or do I be less authoritative? Because authoritative and bossy are the same thing.
And it's not a balancing. I don't think it's a balancing to satisfy who's surveying you.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the solution either.
Yeah. And sorry, the second thing that kind of touched on what you were saying was, I'll be 40 this year, so I've got 20 years left in the industry.
Man, I'm the oldest one in the world. Am I?
I don't know about that.
So I got a long way to go, but I put put myself in a man's age, right, like a business owner, the old boys club, the white guys running companies. What incentive is for them? Because they're looking at the exit sign. What incentive would they have to change the way the industry's been operating when it's been so easy and profitable and comfortable?
Here's the problem. This is the biggest problem that I have with the exit sign. They're looking at the exit sign and handing it off to another white guy.
Yeah.
Are they not? White guy. Not white woman, not minority, not anything. White. That's what's being handed down.
Hold on.
They not?
This example is contingent on the story being that the current company led by a white male, is being handed over to someone else who is white and male, right?
For me, it wasn't. Yeah, sorry, go.
I'm saying someone else that fits the upper management mold is what I'm trying to get at.
You know what? Part of that might be the whole unconscious bias or availability bias, because the people who have naturally gone up in the ranks have been those white guys like me.
But
which is
they're
ironic
given the
coming from a guy like
opportunities.
us.
Well, this
We're
goes
going back to what
you're
Coralee said,
saying.
where
Yeah,
it's like
exactly.
women are not being given the opportunities.
Exactly.
I
So
can
how do
think
they
of
get up
several
there?
women right away that the last 2 points is, are they given the opportunities? The answer is hard no. They're not given the opportunities, right? So then they become suppressed. And then, subconsciously, what happens? That unfortunate female is just like, well, I'm just going to stay where I am and, grow marginally, where she could be here, which is not.
Or leave.
Or leave, right?
They're gonna
Or
leave.
Do they
They're
leave
gonna
the
leave.
industry and go to another industry, or do they leave a different section of the industry?
There,
And
of the very small number of women that actually start in the industry, 72% do not complete their career in the industry. So they're the ones that are leaving. They're leaving.
72. That's a lot.
And I'm sure it's a lot
That's
less
huge.
for men.
Yeah, I would
Like
think
I've
so.
always questioned the leaving part,
Yeah.
but there's no way men are 70.
I'd be interested to finding out how recent is that number, if you don't mind me asking.
That's from. I heard that stat last year on a panel discussion for women.
72.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That is huge.
So, you know,
at
was
the
that-
same
And that's a
token-
loss for the industry.
At the same token, I'd love to find out what that number is for newcomers, meaning male or female, because right now that's probably where we're picking a lot of our talent from, right?
I think the newcomers are actually not fighting that bull, and they're growing their own growth. You know what I mean? They're building their own business.
Yeah, this is not a full-time thing for them.
No. I don't mean it by that. They're coming into the construction industry, but they're seeing that they're being pushed down. They can't grow career-wise because maybe they're a minority or maybe they're an immigrant or what have you. So then you start thinking, well, I'm going to start to just grow my own construction industry, which is going to invite everybody that I want to work with, which is not really the typical group.
I've heard that said a few times in recent past about the possibility that a lot of newcomers or youth are going to start their own companies. But with what experience? I pity them.
That's
if
where
they
the
do,
white
because-
nothing. That's the
like
thing.
clean comes
Nothing.
in, where it's
Yeah.
like,
But
I
that-
don't
does that
think it's going to
really-
be better.
But
There's
does
no
that
fear.
really help?
No,
us?
No, it
Because
doesn't.
no.
It
I think it's going to make
I think
things
both
worse.
need to work, but the problem is that what's going on now isn't willing to work with what's coming in.
And I think they don't have any fear. Like they have a level of confidence that they can do anything.
Yeah.
And that used to it drove me nuts because this entitlement, that were my employees at the time. And then when I recognized, this is actually a really valuable skill that they have because it gives them innovation. It gives them the confidence to do things, to push the boundaries, to grow and become what I or people of my mindset at the time weren't going to be doing because we weren't thinking like that.
It's the drive. And I'll share a little quick story. I had a youngin working with me at one time. He was with me for about a year and a half or so. And then he felt that he's, ego's big enough and I'll leave. And I'll go on my own. I'll do my own things. And then some people were telling me what he was up to. And I was like, I don't care. He left. He burned that bridge. I don't give a shit. But as soon as he got to the point where he left what I was teaching him, his business started falling apart.
Yeah.
So it's like you left before you got the experience. So that's why I go back to you need both. You need that drive from that person coming in hungry, but you need the old person that's going to educate them on what's going to happen later on in your business.
That touches on something we talk a lot about, Gianluca, like mentorship and guidance. Because, you take the trades, right? You have an apprenticeship for a reason because it takes 4 or 5 years to learn. You have to put the hours in. You have to make the mistakes because everybody's going to make mistakes. But ideally, it's in a controlled environment where you're under the care and control of a journey person or somebody who's experienced. You know what I mean? So yeah, totally. Like comes back to the whole human element. Nobody's perfect. Everybody makes
But look
mistakes.
at all this shit that everybody in construction is going through, and then we have to compound mental health and issues, and then all of a sudden now you get married and vices come in, and children happen, and mortgage rates go through the roof, and groceries.
And I think that is something we all experience as human. That's a human condition. And I think it's exacerbated in the construction industry because of the whole masculine environment
Yeah.
and I think that is why we see so much issue in the industry, is because I always bring it back to leadership. Our leadership is not compassionate, sensitive, understanding, empathetic, all of those things enough to be able to, manage what it is that the people need.
Let's keep pulling at that.
Well,
Sorry. Okay, go ahead.
Just a quick thought on that, because I want to lean into what you're going to say. But is that a combination of ignorance or lack of being equipped? Right?
Both.
I was going to say it's a combination, I think,
I'll add a third in there, is the fact that, it was shared from somebody else most recently, is that a lot of the people that are in this currently in this industry, more than likely on the older veteran side, have been shit on for so many years.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Just completely shit
They
on.
don't want to give back.
Okay, so
No,
That's
they're
the problem.
sour.
That's the problem I have. They don't want to give back.
don't.
And if you've gone through
No,
that
all of a
shit,
sudden you want me to
you should be giving back.
Right.
Yeah.
All the more
but to
reason
them,
why
but
you
to them,
should.
it's like, well, this is how it was for me, so this is how it's going to be
Yeah.
for
That's
you.
that you need
So
to
what
break
both,
that.
What both you were saying, and I'm going to go back to my question from before. So put yourself in the shoes of this company owner who came up through the ranks, running a business like that, making money like that, building their career. What incentive is for them to change the way they're operating, to be more compassionate, be like
Turnover.
yeah,
People aren't coming in and they're losing people.
Right.
Like that is a problem. And it's only going to get worse in the next 5-10 years. And we keep talking about it and there's no change. So what's going to happen is they are going to continue to lose their people, because I'm hopeful, and there will be other employers that start to create an environment where people actually want to work. And those people who aren't making the changes that they need to change are going to lose their people. And they're going to just be paying out, through turnover.
That's a perfect example of good leadership. But I may be stuck in the fact that, say I'm retiring in 2, 3, 5 years or whatever. Why am I going to spend all this time and this money and feel uncomfortable making it more accommodating for other people, versus just kind of riding it out and letting it, you know what I mean, and perpetuating the cycle? Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm being too cynical here.
Okay,
guys.
so
it comes down to caring and compassion and empathy for other people.
It's human beings. Like, at what point in time, we all know this, as you age, you have different thoughts, you have different realizations of life, that it's not about me anymore. So what's the legacy you want to leave behind? You want to leave the industry and say, okay, Jonathan did what he did when he was there, but nobody gave a shit when he left.
Yeah.
Or what kind of legacy do you want to leave behind? Mm-hmm. Like, when you show up with empathy, care, realization that we're all human beings first, everything changes.
Mm-hmm. But when you've made it, you don't care.
Well,
majority
this is
of things.
That's what I mean.
Gianluca's point.
Just
Sometimes you got to look in the damn mirror and say, "Holy shit, man!"
So what I would say too, because now we're talking about solutions, which is exciting, and the impact of like addressing things, especially like mental health, but just connecting with people. I think I had it written down here somewhere. Give me 1 second. Okay, benefits of increasing awareness and understanding and treating people like people. Higher performance. So if you value somebody and they see how they fit into the bigger picture and you have that human connection, I would bet that they're going to perform better for you. They're going to go the extra mile.
100%.
They're going to work late. They're going to get the job done. Lower absenteeism. So if they're more happy, if they're healthier, they're not going to miss as much work. What happens when people miss work? You have a crew of 10 people, 2 don't show up. You can't do as much as you planned to do that day. Lower presenteeism. So presenteeism was when you're physically there, but you're mentally checked out and you're basically useless. I've been there. Everybody probably has too. That's going to impact performance. Disability costs. I think we talked about this last time too, but it costs money when people go off. WSIB, short-term, long-term leave, all this stuff, it impacts the money. And when something you touched on, Coralee, was attract and retaining talent. Because people want to go where they're cared about. They want to go. And I think that's important now, because you Google everything, right? If somebody's thinking about going to a company, first thing they're going to do is Google it. Oh, who works there? What's this person talking about on social media? What are the values? You know what I mean? That stuff might not have been that important 10, 15 years ago when people just needed a job and that information wasn't available. So there's a lot of benefits to focusing on this stuff. I'm not anti it. I'm totally for it. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate.
I'm still faulting the leadership. I am, but I'm also faulting the kids.
Okay.
How?
They're not speaking up. And I'll give you an example. Okay, like, you guys tell me of any construction relevant podcast that's being run by a young 20-something that's discussing mental health issues. I don't think that podcast exists. And for the good that I've been doing with this show, when I get approached by young people about starting their own podcast, it's never about mental health. It's about their specific trade or about the construction industry. They want to grow that, but they're not speaking up.
I think it's
We're here older in our 40s and 50s, and we're speaking up, and we're asking them, we're lending a hand, and we're asking them to speak up, but they're not speaking up.
I think it's because we've been through some shit, and they haven't.
Well, that's why we're sharing
it.
it. Yeah, I know.
Yeah, they just might not know. I didn't realize it.
Is it because they don't want to go through this shit? I've heard what you've gone through.
Yeah.
I don't want to go through that.
Yeah, yeah.
I think it's because it's scary too.
Yeah.
It's scary. It's uncomfortable.
But it's made you a better person.
It took me until.
At what cost?
It's all part of the story.
At what cost?
I didn't do it a second trip.
It took me, maybe I was a little slow. Maybe I'm a little slow to learn. But it took me until I was in my early 30s. And maybe that's because I didn't really experience true hardship until that point in my life. But it was in my early 30s, I remember the moment like it was yesterday, where I became self-aware enough to realize, like, I'm really fucked up. It coming to that realization. But I didn't feel too bad because I realized that everybody's fucked up. And we're just dealing with our fucked upness in different ways. And a lot of people don't know how to deal with it. So you put on this front. Everything's okay. I'm posting pictures of my pasta. This is my cat. Everything's fine. My life is great. But
that's a mask.
Totally. And a lot of
We have
people
more and more
are
of that,
suffering
right?
internally, pushing it down, not sharing it. But getting back to what you were saying, and I remember seeing a stat on KMH's website. I think the stat was by the time the average Canadian reaches 40, 50% of people will have experienced mental health. So, like, to your point, people are getting married later in life now. That brings in a whole different set of stressors. You have kids later on in life. So it might just not be.
So here's a question about leadership and also CAMH as well. Are they actively telling people, get off social media?
I know.
Because we know it's evil.
Yeah.
And it's perpetuating a lie regarding, I'm asking, my life is amazing because this is where I've gone out. This is what I'm doing. This is the job site that I'm on. But it's literally just hiding what I'm really going through. But is the conversation about leadership coming and going? Maybe you shouldn't be on social media and spending. Let me see your time on your phone. Maybe you shouldn't be spending 26 hours a week on that phone for these apps, right?
Yeah. That's
is
a great
anybody
point.
talking about that?
I bet you no.
I can't wait. I'm telling you right now, I can't wait to the date that I Truman Show away from social media.
I know for kids, there's studies out there and there's recommendations that kids don't go on social media until they're like 14 or 15.
That's the
There's
parents telling them that. You don't think kids are, okay.
No, they are doing it anyways, but like the studies have shown that you're not developmentally to the point where you can be exposed to the shit on social media until, because you're so impressionable at a young age.
I'm not a parent, but I know that a lot of parents will not let their kids eat McDonald's. But then if the kids are hanging out with their friends and they happen to be by a drive-through, they're going to have McDonald's.
Big Macs, buddy. Yeah.
That's what I mean. So
that was
they're
me.
consuming social media.
Yeah.
I think it's a conversation that parents need to have with their kids. It needs to, acknowledge that this is part of their life. I've gone through this with my kids, and I've struggled with it because I don't particularly appreciate, or I never did appreciate, social media. I've been able to meet all of you people through social media, so for that I am grateful, and I'm learning to be grateful. However, I see what it does to people, and that is what bothers me, because I'm not a consumer of social media for exactly that reason. I'm very mindful not to, look at anything that is comparing myself to what other people are doing or anything like that. And I think it is a parent's responsibility to acknowledge my kids are going to be on it, even if I say no, and let's kind of coach them or guide them or help have the conversations. And I see, maybe I'm going to get in trouble for this.
It's going to be good.
I don't know, this show.
I think parents are doing their best, and it's lazy. I think that it takes a lot of work to have kids be mentally healthy and confident and have the self-esteem that they need to be able to go through that. So to give your kid free access to social media and not give them any guidance, I think you're just setting your kid up for failure.
But I want to blame social media. I think it's a huge culprit towards mental health issues.
Absolutely.
Because the construction industry, all these influencers out there, like I've seen the high-rise guys looking all cool and all dressed up perfectly and everything's all brand new, installing windows and all safetied up and everything's legit, but we don't know what that person's going through.
No.
But people watch it, young, coming into the industry going, I want to be that rock star.
Yeah.
But you don't know what that person's going through.
Mm-hmm.
And now you try to live up to that.
Yeah,
sure. And you can't, and then you feel like a failure.
There goes the mental. So that's why social is connected to this strongly.
Absolutely.
Sorry, Gianluca.
where we could be using where we could be using this tool, because it is a tool.
Yes.
If used properly, it's a wonderful tool because the world's at your fingertips. So having said that, storytelling for our industry, I think I feel is massively powerful to allow anybody, not only newcomers, even people that have been in this industry for 20 years. Some of them have not seen all of the backstage of what the construction industry is all about. So if we use this tool to perpetuate those messages or those stories, that would be awesome. Real quick, on the parenting, I concur, even reluctantly, on the laziness. However, we live in a continent that is North America that I describe it, the analogy I use is we live on a treadmill that never stops. It is very demanding. And as a matter of fact, the story I'll share with you to tie this up is in 2014, my cousin Elisabetta came to visit me for the second time in Canada. She spent 2 weeks and asked me when it was time to leave, are you going to drop me off at the airport? I said, yes. So we're driving, and all of a sudden, when we got on the 401, she saw there was an opportunity to speak to me. She lowered the volume, and she turned her back towards the door. She looked at me in the face. She says, "You guys are fucking crazy." out of nowhere, in Italian, mind you. And I said, "Unpack that for me." She says, "You don't stop." I said, "I've been watching you for 2 weeks. You just don't stop. You don't even stop for lunch. You don't stop to smell the roses as
she meant you guys like us Canadians.
Everything. She had no
munchies.
Yeah. But it's Canadians. Yeah.
What's the Italian saying in the afternoon? What do you guys say? There's that saying. You're supposed to take a break or something like that. What's it? There's an Italian saying.
It's not like a siesta, because
not siesta. Like there's a phrase. It's about taking a break and understand and appreciating what you have. And Italians do it all the time, right? I don't know.
I don't know what you're talking about, but I fucking love it. I love the idea.
Because the idea is just like stop and just appreciate what you have.
They break for anywhere from 2.5 to 3 hours.
Which is what we should be.
They probably get more done than we do.
Yeah, because you imagine.
Let's not go that far.
No.
Construction-wise.
Okay, forget. Can we edit that out?
Yeah. But anyways, I just wanted to share that. And quickly, to Angelo, you said, you shared a stat earlier that by the age of 40, and I'm paraphrasing now, correct me if I'm wrong, that 50% of people that by the age of 40 would have experienced mental health.
Some form of mental illness,
Yeah, mental illness. The average age right now in Canada is 40.6. So does that mean that 50% of our population is
Yes. I would say yes.
I would go so far as to say it's probably higher than that, and
I'm with you.
Everybody, like we said, everybody has their issues, so it's on a continuum of what the mental health challenges are. And I think everybody's struggling. Everybody. It's just how well are you equipped to manage it, and do you have the resources available to you?
Yeah, do you know what to do? Look, I can tell you, I have the pleasure of coaching U18 athletes, right, at a local league hockey level. And the stuff that these athletes are dealing with in life, for them is a big deal. For us, I mean, we've experienced it a little bit more, so maybe it's a big deal, maybe it's a medium-sized, it doesn't matter. But it's, again, checking in. It's equipping them. It's having these conversations so that they don't become part of these numbers. I think it starts way younger. Way younger.
I'm just trying to think of what decade in Canada or in construction would have been a good decade.
What's defined
good? Well, I mean, good work, productivity, leadership, like when things were good.
Oh, well, let's remove leadership. Productivity. The 50s, 70s was like
probably
motoring.
80s.
And you never had a problem with labor force, because if one didn't work out, there was a lineup on the sidewalk of people.
And safety? What safety?
You're gone. There's probably another 15 waiting for your job.
Yeah.
But safety wasn't there. Yeah. Leadership, I think productivity, rock and roll.
It was back to what you were saying is, appreciating having a job. So people worked.
Well, here's a question for...
There's missing some of that.
Yeah.
And I think the whole leadership thing is that the people of those days responded well to the leadership style.
Right.
The people have changed. The leadership style has not. That's where we are.
Right. So here, and kind of on that theme too, and what we were saying before, here's a question for you guys. What changed at whatever decade it happened? Because I know myself, all the friends I have, everybody I talk to, everybody's got some sort of depression or anxiety, or whether it's diagnosable or not, whatever. But it doesn't seem that stuff existed in previous generations. So did it exist, but it wasn't labeled and people didn't know what it was? Or did something change are we just a bunch of wussies? Like, what did the environment change? Like,
You're a bunch of wussies.
we're a bunch
You're
of
millennial,
wussies.
aren't you?
I think it always,
I'm out of here. Screw you.
it's hard to say that it was always there. I think it was just a different mindset. There's too much shit going on in the world these days.
Distractions are, we've talked about this.
Like
Distractions
massive amount of distractions.
We
Like
have
I would not
access
want to
to
be
all
one
this.
a kid today.
Yeah.
Like I was like, unfortunately, I was walking around and where was I? A mall or something like that. Every kid's head was down.
Yeah.
Every kid's head was down.
On a phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nobody was looking forward or up.
Yeah. You're not really living in the moment.
So I think back then, those weren't the problems. The problems were, when's my next job going to start? I need to finish this job and achieve it, get paid, now contribute to my bills, contribute to my family. Those were the problems.
That's a good point.
And they solved them.
There-
They
now
didn't have
there's-
all these other distractions.
There is distractions 24/7. Man, I don't watch the news. I know it's come up before too. You don't watch.
never watch
But
the
the
news.
times if I'm at the gym or I'm at a restaurant, CP24 is on or whatever.
hate it.
And the ticker, it's like you
can't
can't
stand it.
stop looking because it's like what other horrible shit is happening? You got to show me more. But and you're constantly bombarded by this stuff, and it's totally.
Even less than that, when we've talked about this in the past, is the connectability, right? There was a period of time where if you were out of the office, somebody left a message, a physical paper message to say, call me. It would take 24 hours to respond or whatever it took. Right now, the distractions that we live in an instantaneous society. Manny, I text you. Manny, I emailed you. Did you get back to me? No, man. Like I'm doing my shit right now. Fuck off. Leave me alone. It's the distraction.
This is
The
the other
expectation
problem. Like if
too.
we don't get that reply back within seconds, we start to.
We
like,
want that dopamine hit. Hey, I said that to you. Did you get that?
Yeah, we go from like you're a dick, and then to like I'm on your stoop, gonna kill you now, like because you haven't replied back to me. Like
It's
that's
been
just
12
stupid.
minutes. Why didn't you
It's just been
respond? Like, holy
stupid.
smokes.
And then they take it personally.
Yeah.
What did I do? Are they angry at me?
Make it worse.
Yeah, maybe
the
they're
dots
angry,
continue.
Well, that's
right?
anxiety, man.
Yeah.
Your brain just fills in the dots with
Part of
whatever.
it, part of the reasons I feel that it's being taken personally, and that people are always chasing the next answers because nobody seems to be willing to pick up the phone and actually have conversations on the phone. And now with video, be it FaceTime or Zoom or all these
Accountability.
Sorry,
It's accountability.
there is none.
You say something that came across wrong,
Oh,
then I got to address that.
we're conditioned now to hide behind a computer.
So how do things change, right? When you intentionally be aware, not to cause unintentional upset.
Wipe the slate clean, and nobody's
You know,
allowed
you
to
keep
use
saying that, and
smartphones.
honestly, I got to tell you, the thing that goes through
Boom,
my mind
flip phones, Nokia.
It's not the solution,
What was
trust me.
the Marvel movie where Thanos, right, snaps his fingers and the
Oh.
whole world goes? Did it
That's
solve
not the
anything?
solution. You're going to have a
Right?
far worse construction
Yeah.
industry if you do that.
Yeah, it didn't
You
solve.
need
it.
both to meet in the middle.
So rather than say wipe the slate clean, how about I ask you a question? And I heard this asked of me a couple of weeks ago. The industry is what it is. You're just going to have to learn to work with it.
I hate that.
Yeah.
That is, it is what it is.
That's the
bullshit.
problem.
I hate
That's
that.
the problem.
And while we're at it, even as it relates to our governments, the 3 level, it's just the way they operate. That's how they write policy. You won't ever change policy. If anything, it's going to get more complicated. So you just got to learn how to maneuver around things. It's kind of the one and the same.
That's where I go back to the immigrant coming in here, and they set up their own shop, and they grow their own shop. They don't go with what is the typical.
The construction industry is very isolated. As a matter of fact, we work under extreme stresses on the daily. Our industry takes a lot, but it gives very little in return to our people. And I find that a crying shame. It's also among the many reasons why I founded the Constructors Guild, a community for those who build them. So if you're a construction professional looking to surround yourself with like-minded people, people that share some of the same core values, you're willing to put yourself in first position, you're supportive and generous with your wisdom, and possess a thirst for knowledge, this might be the right group for you. Connect with me on LinkedIn or check us out at constructorsguild.com.
I was
But you know-
interviewed recently, and they asked me, how do I integrate myself into the industry? And I had a really hard time with that. I was like, just the thought of integrating myself into the industry was just like, oh, it's not something.
It insinuates that you don't belong.
That was part of the conversation, was just as women in the construction industry. I would rather work to change the industry than allow myself to integrate into it, because to me, that is condoning the way it exists. Mm-hmm. And so, back to your point where, I would rather change it and work to change it than just be okay with it or accept that we can't change it.
Yeah,
you
can't, yeah.
So who's changed the industry?
Me.
In construction.
Oh, wow. I love that. Was aggressive.
It's awesome.
That's great.
Well, that's
me too.
That's why we're here, right? I mean, we're here.
I didn't get a ticket from Vancouver
items, right?
for a day to be here. Just to hang out with you guys, which is kind of nice. Yeah. At the same time, I'm going to be doing everything that I can to make the changes with regards to mental health. It's a huge issue in our industry, as we've stated in many of the episodes previous.
Yeah.
And the leadership, I think, is the source of the solutions. And I will continue to do whatever I can to speak to the leadership level to help people be educated as to this will help your bottom line. This is going to make your business better. It is not going to cost you money to invest in your people.
It's an investment. It's going to cost money up front, but you're going to get.
But is it sad that we have to sell ourselves on the idea of getting better human beings?
It is
because
sad.
it's associated with a
and
dollar
at the
value?
same time, if you can just say, I'm willing to do that because it's what we need to do to move forward.
Yeah.
So I can sit and go, oh, why do we have to do this? That doesn't come up with solutions.
No.
I shouldn't have to do this. No, I shouldn't. And maybe that was the lesson that I learned, 20 plus years ago, when I shouldn't have to coddle you or appreciate you. And then when I realized that's actually what I need to do to move forward and to be better, then why don't we do that?
And it's like, that's a tough word for me, the word should, because I always say, what if you inject the word could? I could spend time connecting with you. I could invest in the people, right? It changes things. So I mean, you brought up some very actionable items. Here's what we could be doing to shift the industry. I know you had some different ideas. Maybe we start dropping a couple of different ideas and throw them around and see what sticks.
Sure. Yeah. No, but I just want to agree with you on one point there, because like what I've experienced through like LinkedIn and Instagram too, it seems like most people think the same way that we in this room do at the worker level. But the people who have the leverage to make the changes, like you're saying, leadership that can actually provide the solutions, they're either like not hearing it or they don't care. I don't want to say they don't care because they're probably decent people. Maybe they're just oblivious to it. I don't know. They think
you can't be oblivious to it.
Let's say the word is greed, right?
You can't be oblivious to it.
That word.
It's there. I think you can walk on any job site, and I think if you were to, people watching is a good example. If you were to people watch tradespeople, you will be able to pick out a few that have a few issues going on at any given job site.
I think there's a lot of that in our industry. Everybody's a spectator. Nobody's a participant.
Goes back to that. I didn't see it. I'm walking away from it.
It's safe to say that the five of us sitting around this table, 6 with Angelina, I'm sure, because we need her help to get this done. We're all committed to bringing change to an industry that is broken and antiquated. But how do we individually feel we're faring with that gargantuan task? And is there anything that we could be doing differently in order to gain steam?
Can't we write a memo and send it to every single company?
Yeah.
Does the
Listen, he worked for Jerry Maguire. He lost everything, but he worked for the Jerry Maguire. He got the girl in the end.
If
It happened
in a movie.
What about a music box where a hand actually comes out and slaps him right across
That would be
the
a
head?
great idea.
I think it should just start by, listen here, fuckheads. That would just get everybody's attention.
No.
So here's an actionable thing, and you kind of touched on it before. And we didn't use the exact words, and I know we talked about this before too. Psychological safety. Okay, to me, health is health. Health and safety includes mental health. And we addressed this on one of the last shows. Was unfortunately at this point, I think you need to include mental with the word health.
Yeah.
Health and safety should encompass somebody's total well-being, which includes the mental aspect and the physical aspect. So how do you foster that culture of psychological safety? You talked about some points, like just checking in with people, making them feel safe, providing a safe outlet for them to talk about how they're actually doing. How do you do that? By actually showing that you care about them. Like we've talked about this a bunch of times. The automatic thing you do when you walk into a room, hey, Coralee, how's it going? Then what do you say?
Fine.
Exactly. Or good, how are you?
Good. Yeah.
But are you actually fine?
Yeah.
Not right now. I'm sure you're fine now because we're having a good time. But you know what I mean? Like peeling back that layer and letting somebody know, like, it's okay to let me know if things are struggling. I'm here for you. And they might be perfectly fine, or something might happen 3 months later, and they're like, oh, I remember I had this conversation with Jonathan I'm going to call them and like, you know what I mean? I think that will contribute to a stronger workforce, more productive people, more healthier people, psychological safety. And like no different, sorry, I keep going on here. No different than like a safety moment. You do a toolbox talk. This is a task we're working on today. These are the hazards. Slips, trips, and falls. Wear your glasses. Tie off a thing, whatever. Like talk about mental safety.
But how much is that workforce actually engaging during that toolbox talk?
They're not, but it's still planting a seed. Even if they're not 100% engaged, having a safety moment.
Do you remember all the airplane safety requirements?
I do, yes.
In the event of?
In the unlikely
No, I think it goes like this.
Oh, is it unlikely event?
There's 6 exits.
Marianne, who's on the show on the Plumbers Roundtable, I think she's at Lady Plumber _ or something. I can't remember.
Yeah,
exactly.
she's the Lady Plumber. Lady Plumber. Yeah, she's,
so
she's
she
in
did a really
Vancouver
interesting
Island.
post this week where she was talking about how she went to go see a client of hers and they weren't answering the door. You saw that,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, the
and then
well-being.
she did another follow-up post
Yeah.
because it was a 3-4 days, and then she actually called the police, and it was calling the police to let them know
welfare
Ju-
check.
It's to go have the wellness check.
wellness check.
Wellness
Wellness
welfare
check.
check. Yeah.
So then she expanded it. She just said, and she did a follow-up post, and I love this. It was amazing. And she just said, we should be wellness checking a lot of people in this industry. Because she was going on a client because she knew about this client, but she wasn't hearing back from her. And then she started thinking, well, hang on, there's lots of tradespeople that we don't stay in touch with, right? And it's really, I mean, it's been great that a lot of people on the show here, I somehow get connected with them and then their birthdays come up and then I get the notification through. That's the one good thing about smartphone. Then I'll send a nice little happy birthday. How's it going, Rockstar? And that's it, right? And they're like, oh, thanks so much, Manny. But that's just like a little subtle wellness check that does help tradespeople, I think, right?
Totally.
Can't do mine because my birthday online is completely a lie on every single platform.
Is it? Which
So
one?
I get birthdays all different.
What is it? What is
I'm
it?
not telling.
It's February 29th.
I'll get notifications in every single month but the month,
February
okay?
30th. Yeah.
Angelo brings up a great point as it relates to reimagining the health and safety. You know, having it include and embody wellness. I feel that if I were to look at the industry, I feel it'd probably be split in 2 buckets. The ones that will make fun of it at the beginning, but with slow and persistent drips, they will come around. And then the other bucket would be the ones that will go, they'll be looking around as if they're on candid camera and go, I can't believe this is real. This is exactly what I feel.
Yeah, you're gonna say
we
give me
need
a lot
it.
of
Yeah,
thank
this
yous.
is a reaction of amazement and of gratefulness. I feel those are the 2 buckets. And even though one will push back at the beginning, I'm an eternal optimist that they'll come around and embrace it. Maybe not everybody. You know, we got to be realistic.
You're not
This
gonna
is
get
not going to
everybody,
be
no.
for everybody.
But-
But I'm fairly certain that a vast majority of them will come around sooner or later.
A perfect example.
given
I'm going to do a demonstration here for you guys, but you ever seen sites where they mandate stretching?
Yeah.
There's a bunch of posts on site, and it's people mocking it, but it's, it's a bunch of guys doing this.
Yep.
Loosen up your hips or whatever. But that is proven to reduce musculoskeletal, did I say that right? Injuries, strains, pulls. And then it reduces, so what? A couple guys mock it. It's going to be the same with mental health. If you take a moment to do a wellness check
once
and
they start
mindfulness
applying
or whatever. Yeah.
And it's not for them. It's for the people who aren't going
Exactly.
to mock it.
I think the majority of people are going to benefit from it. So.
Yeah, I would even say like there's no such thing as bad publicity. Mock it. Somebody's going to resonate towards it and go, oh,
Yeah. Oh, that's cool.
maybe they're onto something.
Did you like my demo?
Yeah.
It was wonderful. I want to ask you guys, because I've never been on the high rise on the bigger projects. How often do you guys see leadership come down onto the job site and start checking things out?
When
Never,
something
right? That's
bad,
what
when
my
something
point
bad
is.
happens.
Only if something terrible, which is generally a
Usually-
death.
So when you see, in my experience, if you see a VP or director come in, you're like, holy fuck, what happened? Like it was
Shouldn't
me.
they, like, that's on the memo now. We should include that, where they should be making more site visits and just checking in and saying hello to people, right?
Why not just do that like that show is like Undercover Boss, man? Like go and work a day.
I love it.
Right?
I love it.
Man,
Holy
that's
shit, man.
fantastic.
I don't know. Listen, I've lived it. I've done it. I've
They've earned their stripes. They've done their...
Doesn't matter.
I
You
think my
you
philosophy
forget
is
pretty
I
quickly.
know,
My
I know.
philosophy is
I'm
very
saying
simple.
yes.
For a
I'm
while.
just being a
I
dick
get
about
it, man.
it.
Like
Yeah.
it drags on the floor. Good for you. Well done. But I have a different philosophy. It's really different.
Imagine if there was. I'm so grateful you brought that up because I thought about it myself and I completely forgot about it. So thank you for bringing that up. But imagine if there was a program like that where upper like management or C-suite executives would actually spend time on site, be it one day, a 3-day stint, and actually work. Be the worker. not be recognized as the vice president or CEO or whatever.
You know
other
what's funny
title.
is that the workforce wouldn't even recognize them.
And the other thing,
If they were in PPE and workwear,
put it
they wouldn't
best,
recognize
yeah,
them.
and the other one that I would like to see, another part of this undercover type show for our industry, is actually get our clients to strap on the same equipment and go into the trenches.
Like,
I know, but
no.
I just see a stack
struck
of
a chord
accident reports, man.
Because this, and I'll bring this up.
I want to be there when it happens, by the way.
Because I had some really heated discussions in a past version of myself with some executives, especially during the COVID eras, where it was like they were armoring up, and I was like, "Listen, man, I'll meet you down on site. If you want to meet me on site and it's cool for you, no problem. And then you know what happened? All of a sudden,
They back off.
Nobody said shit. They stayed within their offices, and I was like, "Thank you." Then let us do our job and shut the hell up. Because that's the whole point. It's like it's really easy from a cubicle to tell you what I think you should be doing. There's that word again. I think you should be doing because it works for me. I don't give a shit. Good for you.
That actually, if they use the word should, is actually because they've thought about it maybe minutely, but they actually thought about it a little. The majority, I feel, of clients have not taken it that far. They're just barking orders as if they don't,
Do it this way. Yeah.
Did you say COVID errors? Did I miss
No,
era?
COVID
Or like I thought there was
era.
only one. Okay.
No, during the COVID era.
I just want to make
There
sure.
was
There was
tough
one. I only want to make sure there was one, unless I slept through
For now.
something.
Unfortunate conversations happen.
I think
with
But these are all great ideas, and I think if upper management started implementing them, it would actually be helping the industry. No.
I don't think it's that hard here. So here's another one, like, because we listed out some stuff. So stuff employers can do, like provide mental health training. I know you recently
Isn't
took
that
mental
becoming
health first
mandatory
aid. I don't know.
Or is it not?
I'm sorry?
Is it
Mandatory
becoming
by-
I
mandatory?
don't think it's mandatory.
It's not mandatory, no.
It should be. Everybody should. So you need to know what you can and what you can't do. So part of this is like education. Everybody should be able to spot, at least in leadership positions, should be able to spot somebody in a crisis or somebody having a difficult time. Because there's things you look for. Oftentimes, Jonathan, he was doing great, his performance dropped, if I can get rid of him.
Yeah.
But something might have happened. Your parent might have died. Your wife might have left you. I always use that example. I don't know why. But, stuff happens. So that's what you can do. You can learn how to spot the signs. What you can't do is a lot of people aren't licensed professionals to deal with stuff. And I've been guilty of it too.
So
And
there should be training.
Exactly. But you can act as the bridge to get that help. Because if somebody comes to you and says, look, Manny, I've had some suicidal thoughts. What are you going to do with that? Oh, it's okay, man. It'll get better. Like, go see therapy. But maybe they're on their way to do it right then. Like, you need to know how to deal with these situations, how to connect those people with the right resources. First of all, what resources are out there? Do people know? Last time we talked about KMH, the crisis hotline, 988, call or text 24/7. They'll put you in touch with somebody. So, yeah.
But most case people are not going to say I'm thinking suicide.
Yeah, if it gets to that point, we've also
It's-
missed some opportunities
Yeah.
too.
Yeah, that's okay. That's an extreme example.
Right.
But
No, but you're right though. How are you supposed to react to that? Like
Yeah.
even as you said it, I started thinking, how am I supposed to react?
I would have no idea.
And it would seem that with anything that we've tackled as an industry, the biggest traction or the ones that stand to gain the most benefits from any of these types of endeavors are the bigger companies. Hence the reason why I feel these things, as it relates to mental health treatments or just knowledge, needs to be open sourced. So it needs to be available through construction associations, through the unions, if that's the case. Just open source so that somebody can go there, download, and have their policy and procedure already, most of it, if not the majority, enough to be able to implement it. And if a company chooses to do more for it, then they can. But at the very least, they've got a benchmark. That's what I mean by open
I don't
source.
know. My went to IBEW because I was an IBEW member at one point in time, and I think about it. I'm like, I don't even know if IBEW has an EAP hotline for all the brothers and sisters out there to say, hey, call here. I don't know.
But even that,
interesting.
so
Wait,
we
why
t-
can't the construction company have a hotline?
Well, they outsource.
They
it.
have
The
EAPs, that's what,
they'll go to
but-
the insurance company.
But even
to do
that, how many people in a company know what an EAP is and what it does and what's available to you?
I don't.
I didn't for a long time.
If
No, I
they don't
didn't,
know how to
but-
treat mental health, quite
don't
frankly,
know.
I don't think they know what
but
an
that's
EAP
the thing.
is.
When you ask companies, well, what are you guys doing to address mental health? Oh, we have an EAP program. It's
But
a
that's
support.
not addressing.
That's their Band-Aid.
Well,
It's
we
not-
actually
it's a Band-Aid. It's a
the
reaction.
one employer that I worked for. Sorry to interrupt, but I was going to say the one
okay.
employer that I did work for before becoming self-employed. They actually had magnets all over the office. It was an EAP magnet, so with a number. So I mean, and this was a lot of years ago.
Wow.
Almost 20 years ago, and they would have. Yeah, a magnet on filing cabinets, wherever it was magnetic, where you could see the number was visible.
So there was awareness at least.
It lists what
I was very fortunate with the employer that I had.
it lists what the service provides, or like who to call. Like
Go ahead.
No, I've used EAP programs in the past, like for different things. So personally, I know it wasn't super helpful because they were just like, they're just basically triaging, saying, is this guy about to kill himself, or is it like something I can refer to somebody else? So it's a very Band-Aid approach. It's better than nothing, don't get me wrong. But it was that, sorry, the number was everywhere, but was there the awareness?
There was like point form. It was point form. If these are things. It was only like a small magnet that they would have.
High
but
level.
It was, yeah.
Cool.
Why is it even a question? If someone comes up to you and you're getting the sense that there might be suicidal, and you're questioning, is this for real, or is this just a joke, or how do I handle this? Why is it even a question that this may not be truth?
I think the surprise of it all, because people don't know how to deal with it.
But look at the numbers. Are we not, as a workforce, being told? Like, are we not paying attention to our own?
But we always think it's
searching?
happening to somebody else. It doesn't actually hit that close to home until it does.
Until it does.
Well, I just want to rewind. Are we not, as an industry, do we not know what the numbers are? I
Probably not.
no. Like my quick answer is no, we don't.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think to your point, it should be treated as, especially if a suicide is involved or personal harm, like self-harm. That's like, at that point, you don't know if the person is joking or not. Like, it should be treated seriously. It's like if somebody comes to work with a gun and says, I'm going to shoot somebody. Yeah. Are you like, I think he's bluffing. Yeah. He's not actually going to, or are you going to call the cops? You know what I mean?
You don't want to take the risk of assuming the wrong thing.
Yeah. But I think what it comes down to is people don't know what to do in that situation. Most people, I think, are inherently good and want to help. But when you're faced with heavy shit like that, I think a lot of people don't know what to do. So you either fight, flight, or what is it?
Freeze.
Yeah. And you get paralyzed and you're kind of helpless. That's why it's important to train people and how to...
I want to go back to the ages there where it's like, was it happening back in the 70s and 80s? And I get the sense that it might have been happening to older tradespeople. And I think that the stuff is happening to the much younger tradespeople now because of the amount of distractions that are going on today. So you might get a 20-something-year-old tradesperson coming into the industry experiencing what the 40-something tradesperson was experiencing 30, 40, 50 plus years ago. But it wasn't also noted back then, because talk about how today we're having a hard time. Definitely back then there was no way there was a horse's head in the bed at that point. Like, that's not what you're sharing, right? So don't talk about that. But today we're just trying to make it a conversation.
Yeah, I think it's always been around. In the last 10 years, I have invested heavily in time, effort, and money in just becoming, constantly optimizing myself. And, to paraphrase it, doing the work. I continue to do the work. It's something that I've embraced as a lifestyle now. I never want to get off this bandwagon. But having said that, it's allowed me the hindsight or the clarity to turn back and look at my life and see not only myself where I struggled throughout my youth, adolescence, and early adulthood up to present time, but also the people that I've worked with throughout, and go, holy shit, they were actually going through something at that time as well. And not to discount even my parents. I look back now at certain times throughout my childhood, and specifically, I'm going to come out with an example with my father, because he was, ironically, construction business owner, and now there's little bits, almost as if it was what would it be back then? Probably beta and not VHS. That's being replayed, and I'm going, oh my God, he was actually going through something back then, and obviously I didn't know, I was young, but the ability of noticing it. All of that to say, it's always been around. It's probably just exasperated now with social media, not to beat on it, but with how the news is just propagandizing fear on people and adding to the divisiveness. It's making the mental illness a lot more difficult and a lot more prevalent, but mental illness has always been around.
Yep.
I think it's just been masquerading or camouflaging.
But here's even
ways.
the better part is that if you do meet somebody that went through it and survived it, you should be inquiring how they did that.
White knuckle is more than likely the way they're going to tell you.
Yeah.
Yeah, because think about it. What tools did they have?
They had nothing.
If anything, again, to pull back in social media, thank God for social media as a tool that's opened my world to being able to attend. You know, I did all of Tony humble brag, but nevertheless, I did all of Tony Robbins' courses. But if it wasn't for the internet, I would have never known of Tony Robbins. Mind you, I knew about him back in university, so that would have been just pre internet. But things like that, it's thanks to the internet that you come across different tools, different providers, different facilitators to be able to skill stack. Right?
I think you mentioned it before too, and I'll piggyback on what you were saying and the power, the good side of the internet. You talked about storytelling before, and like storytelling is like one of the most powerful ways to connect with people because they get, especially if it's a person, you have a personal connection. You're telling it first person because they're able to kind of live that experience with you. And what's really powerful, especially with this mental health, is sharing stories and hearing. Like I told my story a couple of times. I know everybody's had struggles. But when you hear people tell these things and you normalize the conversations, that's another actionable step that anybody can take. You normalize these things by just talking about it. You might think, oh, well, it's just words. But you're fostering that environment and you're creating space for somebody else to not even say, but acknowledge, be like, holy shit, Angelo went through that too. Yep. And especially when you hear those messages from senior leadership, say your president comes out and says, oh, you know, I experienced a panic attack here. People are going to be like, wow, this guy expressed vulnerability. I had a panic attack too. I'm not that different than the president of the company.
I've experienced it two ways. I've experienced I'm not going to say it's euphoric, but it's definitely
orgasmic.
No,
Okay.
it brings me happiness when I've shared some difficult moments in my life by way of storytelling. Sure. However, the flip side, there's still part of me that is deathly afraid to share anymore.
Oh, for sure.
I don't think I would share, but I think I would guide.
Yeah.
But how do you guide
so?
if you
How
haven't
so?
opened the door to something?
I would just say, try this.
But right,
And
but
then
try
you
this
have that
based on
list.
what though? What's the connection?
No,
What's
you're offering up a conversation. So you're just going to say, just try this, because I don't think you want to be told how to fix your problem.
No.
I think you want to listen to possible solutions that may fit your problem.
Well, a lot of times too, that was one thing on here was listen empathetically, because some people might want to come. And I remember, I think it was Brene Brown or something said, like, when people come to you with stuff, you ask a question. You say, do you want advice or do you want support?
Yeah, you want to be a sounding? You want me to be a sounding board? You want me to give you?
What's the construction industry want?
Construction? I don't know. But I know.
What do you guys think? What do you guys?
The construction industry is. I'm going to give you the answer, but I don't want the answer right now. I just want you to listen.
The construction industry will give you advice because we're very solutions-oriented people. I took engineering. I went into construction. I like solving problems, and I learned this from my wife because she would come to me with a problem, and I would fix it in my mind. And then she'd get mad and be like, what the fuck? That was a good idea. And then she'd come to me with another problem and I would fix it or offer up a solution or offer up 2 or 3 solutions. Like, look, babe, here's some options.
So what's the takeaway here is that you just stay quiet and listen?
Well,
you
if
asked the question.
some people
Sorry.
want advice, so that's why you
But
ask, do
who's
you want
who?
advice or
How
support?
do we assess that?
You ask
I
them.
with my daughters, because it's a very female thing where we just need to talk. We don't necessarily need to have a solution. I'm a solutions person. So when my kids come to me and talk to me about I say, okay, do you want me to listen or do you want me to provide some feedback?
Yeah.
So that they can make that choice. And I'm not assuming that this is what they need. And that can go for any relationship.
Good way to
I'm with you.
approach it.
I have
totally,
the exact same philosophy. I asked, do you want me to be a sounding board right now, or are you looking for a solution? Do you know how you want to solve this, and you want me to pivot through that with you? If you ask questions, I don't want to. Most times people know what they want to do, and if they don't, you just have to guide them a little bit, help them realize it and have the insight for themselves, right? And
curiosity helps with
curiosity to the insights, but you got to have a willingness to become curious without providing your unsolicited thoughts, because it's really easy to say, okay, here, right, okay, here, okay, here.
And doing that too, it almost diminishes the other person's experience or kind of trivializes it, right? And it doesn't, you're not able to provide that space and make that connection. Like if somebody says, oh, I've really been struggling with this. oh, that's easy. Just do this. It's like, well, fuck. I guess I'm an idiot then because I didn't know to do that.
But that's degrees. So you get someone that's older that's gone through it, and they look at what you have as a problem. They're like, that's fuck all.
Guys,
right.
This is
exactly.
This is a huge one for me. This touches a lot.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing this up.
Yeah.
I had some real life incidences, and even just there's so many. But even with my son, I'll keep it super succinct. He was 7 at the time, so it was 3 years ago, and I'm cutting vegetables or something at the counter, and he comes armored up. It takes a lot to share this, right? He's just like, Dad, sometimes I feel like we're not connected, right? And I'm just like, whoa.
7.
Or initially, I said, like, my mind's like, fuck you. What's your problem? I spent my entire life here for you, right? I'm like, okay. I just, but my blood was boiling, and I looked at him and I go, okay. And he's like, I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, well, sometimes I feel like you're not part of this family. I'm like, holy shit. Right? Like, I had clinched this butcher knife right now, and if I was on I just wanted to punch somebody. But instead, I went around, and we're at the center island, and I went around and put my hand on his shoulder. I'm like, it sounds like you're going through a lot right now. And the next 3 words came out of my mouth, changed everything. It was like, tell me more. When you say tell me more, holy shit. I got to tell you, I'm not going to go through the whole story because respecting everybody's time, except that from there, we collapsed to our knees. I'm sitting with him, hands in front. And you know what his initial response was? I don't want to tell you. I was like, whoa. He's like, because you're just going to tell me what to do. I'm like, no. I said, listen, I'm here for you. I promise. This is whatever you say right now, I'm here to listen. And like, what happened after that, I'll never forget. It went from we're not connected, you're not part of this family, to now sitting on the floor with him. He's going, sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough. Holy shit. And my response, as a parent, is the hardest thing to ever hear.
You never saw any of that coming?
Never saw it, right? And initially I'm like, okay, I'm thinking, like, what does it even mean from a 7-year-old? But gave him the space. And I'm like, okay. And again, tell me more. And a little bit different framework around that. But to create, who created the solution? He did. Because he then came back to me. He's like, I don't really want to talk about it now. How about before bed? Sure. And he brought it back up at bedtime to talk about it. And, that stemmed from the underlying issue was he was getting bullied and didn't know how to deal with it because he'd never experienced it. So all of this shit surfaces, and we see this in construction. Something down here happened to this guy showing up like an asshole on site and punched the other guy in the face. Right? Oh, he told me that I used the wrong screw, so I punched him. It was never about the damn screw.
Yeah.
So listen, there's so much there. I think that when we ask the people in front of us how we can help, they know. And ask questions, become curious.
That's the word that came to mind. And thank you for sharing that. And I had to stop from interrupting you because I was fighting back tears myself because I have kids too, and that's the worst thing I can imagine. One of the worst is dealing with bullying. But the fact that your son had the self-awareness and the ability to come have that conversation
at that age.
I think that reflects on you as a parent too, buddy. Like you instilled that in him. So
holding space. You heard you used the word space. That's something that everybody, not only ideally our industry learns, but everybody should learn and encouraged to learn is to hold space. And the power that lies behind being heard and understood. If only those two things, there's so much goodness that comes through that.
I think that's a good point too. It's like seeking to understand.
Yeah.
Because we're all walking around with our own armor and dealing with our own shit. And a lot of times we don't take the time to interact. Like you thought everything was perfectly fine with your son. And you had this expectation, everything's fine. And he had this expectation of you that, oh, you're not around, you're not there for me, blah, blah, blah. When really both of you were wrong. So when you opened up that conversation and allowed those barriers to disappear, and those spheres to kind of cross, that's where the magic happens. Yeah. I think that's just general connection with people in between humans. We're getting really weird here, guys. I have I'm buzzing. This is great.
It's about
what are you pumping into this room, Manny?
I'm not pumping anything. There might be something in the light. We're getting close to wrapping up. Any final thoughts everybody want to share? I think it's been another great conversation. I think a lot of things have come up, which has been amazing. And I definitely still believe, even though we're not hearing from a lot of people, that it is making a difference. Like I was telling you before we got on the mic there, that we keep on doing it. Simple as that.
I just want to encourage people to, if they're willing, I want to encourage them to reach out, be it directly through the podcast, whether it's on whatever platform, including YouTube, or us individually. I want to encourage everybody to reach out and share. What else could we be doing? What else could we be thinking about? Is there something we're missing? Because as much as I want to say that we all have great ideas, which we do, we're human as well. And I would appreciate whatever help that can come our way.
The biggest thing for me is, and the stuff I'm doing is just validating people's experiences. And a lot of it I've found connected with people at the worker level who feel like they might not have a voice or a place to talk about stuff like this. So hearing these conversations, even if you're not getting feedback, it's having a huge impact on people. Because we've talked about it before, when I post about mental health, always at least one message saying thanks. You know, I've been dealing with stuff, right? Have dealt with stuff in the past and I didn't feel comfortable talking about it. And that comes back to normalizing. That's the first step, having the conversations and normalizing. You can't find solutions or make forward progress until we get through this awareness piece. So thank you for providing the venue for that.
I think my last thought to take away is much of what we talked about. Stay curious. Stay curious about what's really going on and dig for the gold there, because a lot will show up.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that everybody's suffering and everybody feels alone. And it takes being brave and courageous to reach out, to say that you're not okay. And I think that when we can provide the space at any level, as a colleague, as a direct report, whatever it happens to be, when we can provide that space for people to say they're not okay, you know, maybe that's a starting point.
You know what I'm afraid of? I'm afraid of that if you actually gave everybody on a job site the freedom to share without being identified, I think every single person has a problem.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Yeah.
I did a presentation almost a year ago on mental health in the construction industry. And it was to a group of probably 25 to 30 people. And it was over Zoom. Every single one of them sent me a message saying thank you. Just thank you for saying this. They just could identify. They understood. They were there. You know, like just completely validating the point that everybody is suffering in some way.
And if not them, somebody they know or is close to them. Like the sheer numbers and the odds.
I'm going with everybody.
Yeah.
I think everybody's got something going on.
So we don't need to answer this on this specific podcast, but if ever the conversation afterwards and into the coming weeks, how do we fix it? Like, how do we use the superpower, the unique abilities that we all have, not only the 5 people that are on this table, but we know other people in our industry. Speaking of which, LinkedIn, there's only 5.1% of LinkedIn that are actually using the platform for what it's meant to be. And I think Matt shared something with me a while back that I believe he had shared with me that only 0.8% of the construction industry is using LinkedIn. So having said that, there's not many of us. There's a lot more of us that haven't picked up either a platform or their voice. But for whoever we know, how do we get everybody together in order to combine our superpowers to bring change a lot quicker than what's happening?
I think the next one is we do it live and we do call in.
Yeah, 100%.
There's hidden. It's just a voice. They don't need to reveal who they are, where they work, what their position is, and we can discuss with these people.
A dream that I have, or a vision that I have, is, and I'd be so immensely grateful and proud if we did it together, would be a town hall with everybody's. It could also be combining the call in as well for whoever's not able to come. But imagine a town hall with live people in front of you. Create a safe container where people feel safe to be able to share. We could strategically place some people within the crowd to instigate the conversation, but just to see where it goes.
Good idea.
Here's a little bit of positivity too, not to keep going. I know we're kind of over time. So Ellis Dawn, I used to work there, don't work there anymore, but they recently hired, you guys might have seen it on LinkedIn, a full-time mental health specialist.
Okay.
That is working. So I just randomly reached out and I said, hey, don't expect a reply because I'm a random dude from the internet. But like, what are you guys doing? And she wrote me a detailed response about things she's working on, stuff they're looking at. They agree that all the EAP and naloxone kits, all that stuff's reactionary, and we need to get closer to the root cause and mitigate. And I was like, this is pretty cool. You know what I mean? So there's people out there doing work. And the only reason I share that is to maybe inspire others to know that there are resources out there. There's things you can do. You don't have to hire a person full time. They got 5,000 employees. They can sustain that. But, you know, there's small steps that people are doing, and it's refreshing to see.
Thank you, guys. You guys want to share your deets? We'll go with Coralee.
Coralee Beatty, Thrive HQ. You can find me at thrivehq.ca or at Coralee Beatty on all platforms.
This isn't at Thrive HQ on Instagram? No.
No?
What is it on?
Coralee Beatty.
It's under your name?
Yep.
Okay. All right.
Gianluca Pascale, you can catch me on LinkedIn, including
For the white people, do you want to spell it out?
it'll be in the show
Is
notes.
that Gianluca?
The Constructors Guild also has a page on LinkedIn. You can find us there. Or alternatively, you could check us out at constructorsguild.com. Thank you, Manny.
Thank you.
Angelo Suntrees, Human Side of Construction. I call myself a construction advocate. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm doing with it, but
That's a
I'm
good
having
title.
some fun, buddy.
That's a
I'm
good
having
title.
some fun.
You're a CA.
I'm a CA. Yeah.
Jonathan Sinelli, People First Leadership, www.jonathansinelli.com. Thanks, guys. It's been great.
Thank you, everybody. Another
Thank
great
you.
show. I really appreciate you flying over the country.
It's worth
thanks
it.
very much, Coralee.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're out of here, Angelina.